I want to thank everybody for being with us today. We have a special guest from overseas, uh, especially studying something very special, sort of the interface of art and trauma. So uh, I think this is such a interesting and important topic, especially for our community. And we're so glad to have someone who literally just finished their doctoral work on the subject. So I'll let Kat tell you about that, and let's hear what she has to say. And just for everyone to know, we're probably going to do about 30 minutes of presentation, and then afterwards we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion. So if you would please save all of those for the end, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Patrick. So hi, everybody. I'm Kat Cope, and I just finished my PhD graduate exhibition. I'm actually in the space right now. It's a little different than it would be in the slides I'm going to show you later because I have the lights on and my films aren't playing, but I'm actually in the space. And I had my Viva on May 2nd as well, and I'm happy to say that I passed that. So just thrilled to be here with you. And my research asks, how can performance methodologies embody metaphorical armor to transform and process unresolved complex trauma? Oh, there we are. So my journey with art began at a really young age. I developed like a special interest in art, like very quickly. When I was 5, I declared I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. I actually did these drawings in kindergarten, and I wrote a book called Adventures of a Girl Dinosaur. So that was like one of my first experiences, just being really into art and being passionate about art. But I'm actually an ADHD person, and I didn't discover that till much later in life. I was just diagnosed in 2023 as an autistic person, and I didn't find out I had ADHD until I was in my 20s, but I really forgot about it actually for about 20 years, repressed that really deep down. And it took like really focusing back into myself and coming here to do this work that was looking at how art could help to process complex trauma, that I was able to uncover this additional layer to my neurodivergence. So I went to college and studied art, and then my mother actually, she said, "Oh, I think you should, get a well-rounded education. So maybe don't go just to art school." So I went to liberal arts college, and quickly declared I'm going to be an art major when I got in. So then. I did my MFA in 2009, and that was at the University of Massachusetts, the Dartmouth campus. So I was in Massachusetts doing that. And like my relationship to trauma started early in my life. And I realized that I was a person living with complex trauma maybe around 2019, but I didn't make the connection that that could be connected to my neurodivergence, because I didn't understand that that was part of my identity then. But it was interesting because a lot of what my work was focusing on was originally when I did my MFA, was lost in absence because I lost my father at a young age when I was 3. So he passed away, and then there may have been signs that was an autistic person, but as was typical in the 80s and 90s, especially with girls, that was not realized at the time. But one thing that was realized is that I had some learning disabilities, and so I did feel like I um, I did feel stigma, like because I went to the learning center when I was young, and I was bullied by other kids, and maybe some of that was also just my social connections. But I was always really outgoing, and I always liked talking to people. But I started making armor in 2014, I suppose, and this is an exhibition I did in 2017 here. This is Onward March, and I started making armor with the idea that, like, we all create for ourselves metaphorical armor that we build from our experience. And a lot of the materials that I were using was like personal ephemera or familiar ephemera, things that maybe had belonged to my dad, books that were his that I cut up, paper dolls that I had as a child or that my grandmother gave me, cards that my mother had given to my um, grandmother and my grandmother had given to my mother, things like that. So that's really when the armor started, but I wasn't performing in it and I wasn't wearing it. So the performance aspect came in when I came here to Ireland to the Byrne College of Art. I did do a bit of performance before that, and I fully intended, like when I applied to this program, to venture more into performance. But that's when it really like came out. Um, Hold on, I'm having trouble with the changing slide situation. Hold on a second. There we are. So this is work that I did when I first got to Byrne. It's I call this my blinder collar series. And basically I didn't realize at the time, but I was creating these like sensory, like overstimulation kind of protective devices that were keeping, you know, me from getting overstimulated. So I was really interested in that when I made that realization, I I likened it to like blinkers or blinders that a horse would wear to prevent them from spooking. And actually, I had a strong connection to horses, also another special interest as a child, and continues to be to this day. So it was a natural connection when I realized that's what I was making. There we go. So this is the second one I made, and actually, the woman on the left is a friend of mine from grad school, another artist and performance artist, Elizabeth Grace Blainott, and she is one of the people that helped me realize that um, I'm an ADHD person, because I had completely forgotten. I felt very stigmatized when I got my diagnosis for that. Like that was a matter of necessity when I was in college. In order to get extra time on tests, I went to be reassessed for my learning differences and for ADHD. And um, I just didn't have a good experience with that, and I really repressed it. So spending time with her, I realized like, okay, like yeah, I definitely share some of these traits, but I also realized like, wow, I'm not that different. Like, and we're all, of course, like neurodivergent or normative. Like we have, our brains are very complex. But like I realized there was an additional layer to my neurodivergence, and that's when I started wondering if I could be autistic. And sort of remembering back to childhood, I had like real strong issues with food and stuff, and textures, and I had a lot of meltdowns from sensory stimulation. So I was kind of piecing it all together at this stage. But yeah, so this became the grounds for a performance that I did called Cut It Out, Suck It Up, which I pull this accordion folded paper out of um, this blinder collar, which in this performance, like, or this iteration, looks like a helmet. And the Cut It Out, Suck It Up was something that I sort of internalized, like dialogue from being a child and sort of, maybe having a meltdown and being told to cut it out or suck it up if I couldn't deal with things. So I cross out, cut it, and suck it, and then I put it back into the helmet, and I say out, up, which I felt like were uplifting words. And so that was my first performance to try to process or transform. But again, like sort of looking at this childhood memory that was traumatic. I actually changed direction after that because I decided I didn't want to relive or recreate specifically my lived experience as a memory. I wanted to be more universal, and also at the time I was looking at artists like say like Louise Bourgeois or other artists that work with trauma, like Doris Salcedo or Anna Mendieta. Just and I decided like I want to do something that can avoid re-traumatization through performance. So this was a piece that I made sort of in between when I didn't know exactly what direction I was taking. And I still had this idea of reliving traumatic memory or like reprocessing it and to try to find some kind of catharsis through the work. But I ultimately moved away from that. And like I said, and this was an installation I did that further cemented that idea because the feedback that I got from the audience um, in the film, I chant, cut it out, suck it up, cut it out, suck it up. And they said, that is going to be stuck in my head for a really long time. So I took that feedback. One of the reasons that I processed it in that way is I began chanting. In 2019, I started a Buddhist practice. It was a really difficult time for me, and I was going through some medical trauma and trying to get through that, and also just living and working and trying to um, deal with the overarching like hegemonic neuronormative model of society. So I um, I started chanting, and I found that really helped me a lot. It really calmed my anxiety. So Buddhism became like an important field of inquiry for me, actually, as part of the project. Like further testing the work, I started allowing people to try on the different elements. And one of the things that I discovered is that people would say that they felt like empowered, or like in the case of these two audience members, they said they felt like superheroes. um, so yeah, it was interesting to take feedback from various people. Um, some people said like one of the things that was nice about the collars is that they didn't feel claustrophobic because the top was open, but that the sides, they did sort of make you feel like safe or like enclosed. One of the artists that I was looking at that sort of helped me to transfer my practice to looking at, well, a few different aspects, like ritual as transformative or processing, was Guadalupe Maravilla, who's from El Salvador and was brought to the US um, basically through coyotes. They came illegally as a child. he came to the US. He had a lot of trauma associated with that, and then intergenerational trauma from the conflict in El Salvador, and then um, he later developed colon cancer. So he had all these layers of complex trauma, and he found or does find healing in sound baths, and an element that he found while he had cancer. So he incorporated that into his performances, and he makes these ritual beds which people can lie on, and they can experience the sound baths. So I thought that was a really interesting way to invite the audience participation, but also to like take trauma and in my case, when I refer to it as transform, it's like perceived benefit. So it's relation to like, it could be more or less benefit for different individuals. But in my case, I found a lot of benefit from things like mindfulness, meditation, and chanting, like I said, and um, different grounding techniques and such. So, which led me to do this performance, which is called Winter Always Turns to Spring, which is something that's from some Buddhist texts that are from the type of Buddhism I practice, which is Nichiren Buddhism, but it is called Winter Always Turns to Spring is means that like no matter how bad things are, it's autumn like never goes back to summer, and winter never turns back into autumn. Like winter always turns to spring. So like, there is that element of rebirth to spring. I know that I always feel better once it's less dark out. So this was a grounding exercise. It's the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding exercise. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing you taste. And it's meant to get you out of your looped anxious thoughts and back into your body. And it was developed by a licensed social worker, Tom Bunn, who actually um, created it like for people that were anxious to fly, but it works really well. So it focuses on interoception and helping you in your body. And I know that's like one thing that I really struggle with is knowing what's going on in my body or what I feel in my body, like when I should eat, when I should, go to the toilet, things like this. And it's common, with people that are neurodivergent. So it's something that I found helpful for myself. And this is one of the installs that I did actually in between here and here. I went through a period of neurodivergent burnout. I didn't know that's what it was because I didn't know that I'm an autistic person. So I ended up just having to take a break and from school. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't really do anything besides eat and sleep, and I couldn't really eat. So I ate crisps and chocolate for about 2 months. Crisps here are like potato chips there, but I've learned to say crisps because if you call them chips, people make fun of you because chips are French fries here, like, so you have to be careful. um, so yeah, so that led me to really considering to go, for an autism diagnosis, and there was a few considerations as to why I felt I really wanted to know for myself, but also that I needed as many accommodations as possible that would help me through this process of doing the PhD. But actually, University of Galway has an amazing disability support services team. So I worked with an advisor through them the whole time I was here, virtually. Well, once I realized I remembered I had ADHD, I signed up for that. So that was really helpful. But this here is another element of the performance where at the end of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, I polish the copper mirror with the lemon. So I take a bite of the lemon, then I polish it. I can show the video at the end if there is desire to watch it. And the copper mirror again reverts back to Buddhism and the idea that the scroll that I chant to is referred to as a copper mirror, and the mirror reflects the self. So I say in the performance, um, polish the mirror and reveal your true self. At the time, I still didn't really know my identity, so and I still don't. Like, I'm still working on that. But I've come a long way in terms of figuring that out. So then I did a performance called Action Equals Courage. Um, and that performance incorporates elements of movement, body movement exercises, which I found are really helpful for a few reasons. From an interoceptive perspective, it helps you kind of move the energy in your body. And then also from a proprioceptive perspective, that's where your body is in space. It helps to identify and where your body is in space. So I found that really helpful. And I spent 4 years of the time that I was doing the PhD working for an organization doing teaching artist work for an organization called Path with Art. And I taught jelly monotype printmaking. Path with Art is really interesting. They do work with artists that have experienced trauma. So basically, instructors that work with Path with Art are trained to practice trauma-informed care in the meeting space. So that became an important part also of my practice. And I began teaching workshops, or well, not teaching so much, facilitating. I'd like to think as a facilitator, there's kind of a more collaborative effort, and it's less like I'm the instructor and you're the pupil. It's more I'm the facilitator and we're collaborating on this effort. But trauma-informed care is the 5 principles are safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment within the art making spaces. So this is what I did to test the further the metaphorical armor, the actual physical paper armor as metaphorical armor. And these are some of the results from the workshops. So while I showed artists in the workshops just to make these fan braces or wrist guards, they actually went wild and made amazing creations. So these people that were in this workshop were all artists, but in this workshop, none of the participants were artists, and they made some really interesting pieces. This one woman who has the jewelry on, she decided to make those because she said, every day I put on my jewelry and it feels protective to me. It feels like, an important part of getting prepared for my day. I'm stuck again on this page. Oh, there we go. So Action Equals Courage is the final performance that I did. And here you can see I'm doing some breathing exercises, and I'm doing some tapping exercises. So tapping or bilateral stimulation is something that's really helpful for trauma. So I incorporated that and made the connection between Qigong and oh, I'm really bad with acronyms and I already forgot. Maybe you can help me, but it's the rapid eye movement desensitization. So in the performance, I'm just having trouble moving on to the next slide. I don't know why. So in the performance, I also developed a mantra. So one of the things that I did for both the workshops and this performance was I started doing like making my own mindfulness guided sort of grounding exercises. And in this performance, I say, um, action equals courage. You don't need to be any different than you are right now. We are wonderful as we are. So that's in between the breathing and the movement. And the collar was made from all these monoprints, but I created it to make it look like stone, because where I live, there's this amazing geological, um, uh, it's basically all this limestone was brought here by glaciers. Um, and um, it's an amazing wildlife park, and the flora and fauna are incredible. And some of the flowers that are here are actually were deposited here by the glaciers. So there's orchids, and they grow up here in Ireland, where they're from the Mediterranean, like these flowers, and also gentian violets, which are also a Mediterranean flower. So it's very rare to see them here. Um, but I wanted to recreate that in this protective blinder collar, because I feel like the Burren really is part of why I have been able to explore this research. It's been a very magical place to be, and it has in itself, I would say, transformative properties. If you read about it, there's a lot of lore about the Fae or the other people, the good neighbors, and it's or the fairies, but they don't like to be called that apparently. So we call them the good neighbors. So this was an installation that I did, and um, it was really nice. I got this review from one of the artists that was at the college. It was an anonymous review, so I don't know who wrote it, but they talked about trying on the collar and how they felt, and how it did feel like there was less potential for claustrophobia, but also they did mention that they also are ADHD as well. So I found that really interesting. There's a lot of artists that are neurodivergent, and I think one of the gaps that I was hoping to fill with this research is to help other artists like myself, in these academic spaces that are, you know, coming to study art. So I found that really to be a helpful review. So this is like the first incarnation of the limestone pavement that I made. And then this is the second. And I wanted to make the installation really soft for sensory seeking people. I would be sensory seeking, but also like just need things to be really calm and quiet. So I created a variety of textures and softness for the space. This is another shot of the final installation for the graduate show. And then this is a pulp painting that I did. So pulp painting is nettles, stinging nettles that I cooked and mixed with recycled fibers and then squirted through a syringe. I use a lot of paper in my work. I always felt like paper has such a closeness or mimicry of skin. It can be very strong when the fibers enmesh, and it's like layers of skin. So this is the final picture of the installation. I created a door so it can be shut so that people can come in and they can enjoy the space. There's a variety of like little tufted stools and blankets and floor pillows and um, meditation cushions and just places that you can relax. And I also developed a custom scent for the space. So with help of another artist, Francine Marquis, she helped me develop a scent for the space that has a lemon note to it. And there's lemons in the space as well for polishing the copper mirrors, because I have 2 of them installed in the space. One behind me, and then there's another one there. So I made a full length one for this exhibition. And so part of this project also is working with other artists that I interviewed. So actually I found out about Casey because I spoke with Dr. Dong Joy Leong, who makes these amazing spaces, considering spaces that are for like meant to be quiet spaces, and calls them feminine spaces. So places of reprieve, say for overstimulation, but like say in cities and things like that, where like public spaces might have need a quiet room, but creating a space that's not just blank, and a space that can be interacted with, so that the participant finds their own kind of solace in the space. And this is another installation that she did. Oops. And that was at the National Gallery of Singapore. So like, I just really was drawn to these soft textures. Is there a lot of background noise that you're hearing? Okay, sorry, some people are in the space and I wasn't sure, so I just wanted to check. And then this is another artist that I interviewed for the project. So interweaving, sorry, I didn't specify that these are other autistic artists. So interweaving their experience into the research, talking about lived experience as neurodivergent persons, masking and trauma. This is another artist, Symphony Delaney, who just received their MFA from Byrne College of Art. And their installation, again, it was a really interesting sensory seeking, had little plushies and things that you could play with, marbles and soft textures. This is a crochet tree that they created. And these interviews have become like a basis for another project. So I'm really interested in interviewing more autistic artists and potentially doing a book of interviews with autistic artists. So that's just wanted to put out there that as a closer, if you're interested, and you can get in contact with me at my email. These are 2 of my emails, and then or on my Instagram. So that is wrapping up my part of the talk, and I look forward to your questions and dialogue.
Great, thank you so much, Kat. That is extremely interesting, and I'm just so fascinated. And the questions are also wonderful. So the first one I'm going to do is I would like anyone who wants to either raise their hand and ask a question. I like to address people who like to speak first, and then if no one wants to speak, then I'll go down sort of the chat and read the comments.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting EMDR in the chat, because I do struggle with remembering things. So I appreciate that. And I see a few questions in the chat. I did start in the US. I was born in the US, and then I moved to Ireland during COVID, actually, for this PhD program. Um, and then you said, what were you most surprised by in yourself in creating this, and what were you most surprised by from someone interacting with your creations? Um, that's a really good question, which I might come back
Surprise
to.
is the right word. I was willing to speak. I just was my memory's terrible too, so I was using.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
But I find that whenever I liked when you said like it was something about. I realized as I was creating it, and I think like everybody has those moments when they're creating where you think like, oh, look at that. So I
Yeah.
didn't know if you had that like something that stuck out from like your own creative process, or when people were interacting with it, if there was like a, huh, look at that kind of moment.
Yeah, definitely. So I think like originally it was in my own creative practice that I realized like what the blinder colors were, and it took getting sick and stepping away from the studio actually for a couple weeks to realize what I was making. Because actually I started off looking. I was kind of looking. It was COVID, so I was kind of looking at PPE as inspiration, but then also I was just visually looking at the suits that people on bomb squads wear, and the collars on those sort of became, I don't know, the focus, but I'd always planned to make like a full suit of armor until I realized what I was making and that it was like blinders. But I guess the most interesting thing for me was, yeah, then connecting that to needing like a reprieve sensory wise. And that also, I think, did come from other individuals like speaking up about it and saying, like, when I wear it, I feel this way. So that's a great question.
Yeah. I think I had her hand up. Did you
Oh,
want
yeah.
to say?
Yeah. Take it down, put it up when people are talking. Thank you so much for just presenting this, and there's so many things that I could identify with around like not knowing you were autistic for a long time. I am very into became something that like saved me was chanting, and like the Buddhist way, and silent retreats, and a lot of different things that really kind of saved me, and was made me like more stable and able to participate in life. But I do find something else that you said around like burnout. It's something that like I not I think I make up, but don't understand the real like effects of what we do that leads to burnout. And I guess my question is like, art was a part of healing from that, and like what did you do to find your way out? Was it through like the Buddhist practices, or like can you talk a little bit about more how you deal with actual burnout?
Yeah, definitely. So, at the time, like the last big period of burnout, which I've definitely, have experienced shorter stints since then, but like that last big long time before I got my diagnosis, I was in therapy like through the college, but it didn't really like it wasn't really per se working, but I did connect, connecting to Buddhist practice and connecting to um, other people in that community did help me. But I think one of the things that really helped me was through the disability support services at the University of Galway. I did some occupational therapy. And I think like in occupational therapy, sort of considering where where I was feeling things in my body, or trying to, that combined with um, chanting and the Buddhist practice, which not everybody's going to adopt, like, as you know, Buddhist practice, but like, I do find like Buddhist philosophy really helpful for that. But yeah, the interoception and connecting to the body, whether it's through movement exercises. I had a different therapist that we would go for walks on the beach, which also like has that bilateral stimulation situation that was helpful. I got a dog so that was really, really helpful. Like, because I had to take care of her and she needed me, and that sort of helped me regulate. Also, like, she's really cuddly, and I think that helped a tremendous amount. And then since I found out I'm autistic, it's weird because I could never feel in my body when I was getting overstimulated like years ago, but now I can sort of start to feel like it, and it feels kind of to me like, and I don't know if this is true for other people, but it feels to me like I'm moving through water almost, like, and everything feels really slow and um confusing almost, like and there's that whole kind of like I can't switch between tasks because I was working actually for the last few years in a shop on the till, like behind the cash register, and like anytime I like had to switch between tasks like quick or something, or people wanted something from me, I'd be like, So now what I do is I just go to sleep. If you can sleep, that's the thing. It's like, I know sleep is hard, but I find if I can sleep for like 2 or 3 hours when I start to feel that way, it's ideal. But if you're at work, I suppose you can't do that. So sometimes I'll just like eat a snack or do some breathing or go to the toilet. And if I really can't deal with it, I'll be like, I have to go home. Sorry. I hope that helps.
It helps so much, and I'm so glad that I joined today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. More questions? Let's see.
I can read the next question. Although I do see a hand up.
Oh yeah, hi.
Hiya. Kat, as we briefly discussed today over message, there's so many similarities between our work. I've never come across another ADHD person who does costume work and everything the way that we do and performs in it. Could you speak a little bit about the difference that you find between the masking of when you're wearing the piece and you're performing, and the masking you have to do when you're in public, if you like? I'd be interested to hear your experience.
That's a really good question. There was this part that happened, or this thing that happened when I started, I guess, doing the performances and wearing the blinder collars, where there was a change in my voice. Because I always really struggled with regulating my voice. And I think because I was trying to compensate for maybe like showing emotion or something, I would go from this tone to like, yeah, like, and so like I have to say I noticed like almost immediately when I started performing with the costume, that changed, where there was like it was like, I guess, a form of unmasking through masking, because I was able to find this tone, which is definitely much more me, I think. Although I still would, I'm definitely a vocal stimmer, so I do a lot of different sounds and pitches and things like that. And but yeah, so that would be like the main thing that I sort of uncovered through that. And then the other masking, yeah, it's almost like now I'm trying to learn to unmask. So um and and that was one of the things I talked to the other artists in my interviews with. And one of the artists I talked to is in Galway, and she's a painter. Her name's and a performance. She's performance and film and stuff too. I think in a small capacity performance, but she was saying like basically like like in a professional capacity, like she has to mask, but it's like the crash after that she has to learn to manage. And I think that was sort of what we were just talking about with the last question, like how to manage the crash, because it's like it's impossible really, like and I was you're probably Karen and Rose and Amy Pearson's work about masking. I found their work really helpful. I forget the title of their book off the top of my head. But yeah, it's just about like trauma and masking, kind of similar to Autism Unmasked and Dr. Devin Price's work. But it's hard to like really answer the question because like I guess the most notable thing I noticed was the change in my voice. So it was sort of like through the performance finding my identity, not realizing that that was who I was, because I was used to the squeaky. I was always the squeaky, kind of people be like, oh, I don't know Kat. Who's Kat? Oh, is she the one with the squeaky voice? So yeah. Hope that helps. I mean, for the answer.
That's great, thank you. I think we're both on a journey of self-discovery as late diagnosed, and personally I find that the performance, wearing a mask during the performance is less draining than the performance of having to wear a mask when I'm in public. So I'm just really interested to hear your, thank you.
Thanks.
You want to go next?
Yay! I just wanted to say thank you. This has been really insightful and inspiring, because I'm also really interested in the psychology of dress and historic costume and the performances we do. And I am also late diagnosed ADHD, and I'm on the journey. I'm trying to pinpoint and trying to figure out where I can place my PhD topic and kind of use my super interests and experiences. So this has actually been really inspiring to be able to kind of hear somebody looking into these sorts of things and how to connect those kind of dots. So brilliant and well done. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. And if you ever want to connect, reach out to me.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that goes for everybody. I think I had a question in the chat about mediums. Yeah, so I suppose like in my master's degree that I did, I pursued a printmaking master's, and during that I discovered that I didn't really love the flat layering of the print. Well, I love the flat layering of the print, but it wasn't enough for me, and I wanted texture and I wanted more layering, more physical texture. So that's really when I got into paper making, and paper making has definitely been something that I have been pursuing since then. And I think, like I mentioned, it is because of that relationship to skin, like this idea that paper can be like easily torn or wounded, but also it can be made incredibly strong. And I sort of connect that vulnerability to the vulnerability of like being a person. Although one of the things that I talked about a lot with the interviewees that I had and other friends that are ADHD or autistic is like, and I've read about, is like, and I've been trying to explain it to friends and family and strangers, is that I never really felt like a person. And like in terms of my identity, like I look in the mirror, like especially when I was, you know, emotionally dysregulated, maybe trying to regulate and, you know, looking in the mirror, just being like, how am I a person? Like, I don't feel like one. Um, so yeah, that's interesting. Like, yeah, I don't know if other people feel that way. Like now I feel like whatever, I feel like more special than a person in a way. Like, and I'm really grateful to have found my identity and like be able to like meet other people that are like me, because I'm like so grateful for this community, and like it's so nice to be around other people that experience similar things. Like one of the things I liked about like the interviews was like we didn't, there wasn't like really like any like, oh well thank you so much, you know, at the end it was sort of like, okay well, I mean there was, but it was also like, okay well we're done now. And I loved that, like we just sort of were like, okay thank you, bye. We're tired now. We finished. I loved that. Any other questions in the chat?
I can read one here, Kat. Says, did your original proposal topic include autism as part of the study, or did that evolve as the project grew?
Yeah, so it didn't involve autism. In the beginning, it was really looking at complex trauma. I started to understand, like, before I proposed the question, I I wrote my proposal in 2020, February 2020 that I applied. So it was like right before the pandemic hit the US in a bad way. It was like February 2nd I applied, but I I'd been reading some books, and one notably was The Body Holds the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And I like just felt like after reading that, I was like, wow, I'm a person living with complex trauma. And I knew like I could note like, okay, I've had this traumatic experience, this traumatic experience, this traumatic experience. But I didn't realize that when I felt like a little animal, like kind of backed into a corner, and I would have like a response to that, that was like um a trauma response, until like I'd read about it. And then I was like, okay, this is, you know, I'm responding to this way because I'm, you know, I'm having a fight or flight moment. Or freeze. But I don't really have that as much as I would have freeze in terms of like shutting down verbally. But I usually feel like, I don't know, like a little like claws out, like animal backed into a corner. Um, but yeah, so the original proposal did not include anything about autism or neurodivergence, and I didn't find out until halfway through um, the project, basically. So 2023 was when I got my diagnosis. So it's been a latter development for the project, but it's it really has come together. So I'm glad, like, you know, from a lived, you know, lived experience, or you know, autobiographical performance perspective, and also just in the being able to help other people.
Great. Let me read the next question. How do you think your themes translate into daily fashion choices? Like the lady with jewelry, I learned that the quote armor unquote I chose for the day is incredibly important, though I can't quite put a finger on exactly why yet.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I had to say, like, fashion was a really like important to me before this project. I actually worked in fashion as a sales associate for about 7 years. Um, and so yeah, like it was incredibly important, like sort of that ritual of getting dressed. Um, I think I don't really explore that as much in the project. And now that I've moved to a rural place as opposed to like living in a city, I literally, and also post pandemic and post my diagnosis, I don't really dress up at all. So that's sort of a bit challenging in a way because like I think there is something incredibly empowering about fashion and getting dressed and feeling your best, like, but also because of fabric textures and also like I suppose my body has changed a bit in the last few years too, so I haven't bought too many new clothes, so I like can't stand tight stuff. So yeah, so it's an interesting question that I don't really process through the research, but yeah.
I just found it interesting because I don't always know why I'm picking stuff, but I know that I'm certain in what I need for the day, and it has nothing to do with dressing up. I mean, I'm a community mental health worker, so I essentially wear jeans and t-shirts, but it's just become like which ones make me feel stronger or safer or like whatever comes with them has become important. So
Do you think some of it is texture? Because I would do the same thing where it's like my favorite things to wear, like I would sort of be like on repeat. So I know what you mean. Like it's not about dressing up. Like
yeah, I think for me, some stuff is automatic. Like, I mean, I wear flip flops in the snow. Like, I can't stand to have my feet overheated and like all that kind of sensory stuff. But I think when it comes to choices with getting dressed, for me, as I understand it right now, it ends up being whatever I need to feel strong and complete, and it's not the same every day. It's like some days I might need to feel like I can blend into the corner, and some days I might need to wear a t-shirt that's probably a touch too political for work, but I feel very strongly about it, or like, you know, who knows?
yeah, I think like it does come down to some like sort of subconscious like need that yeah, like it's sort of hard to put a finger on sometimes, but maybe had a point about that.
I was just going to say this is actually a brilliant direction and potential topic for me in my studies because it's kind of, in a way, it's power masking, or when I've been looking and thinking about these sorts of things, it's ways that we're able to express ourselves. Or like when you're saying there's one thing, there's something I've come across where you have a what's it. We identify it as a what's it. So it's kind of a point of conversation. It's a small item of clothing that we use in order to communicate something. So it is really interesting, isn't it? So thank you for bringing it up because it actually has got me thinking as well. And it's really good to have those thoughts in the conversation and consider it because it's new territory.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for chiming in there, and thank you. Really a question.
Great.
And
So we're a few minutes over, and I just want to be respectful of people's time. I think we do have a few more questions in the chat, Kat. Do you want to take those, or are we tight on time?
I'm okay, like, for time if people want to hang on. Okay, I think I answered that one. I answered that one. Okay, answered that one.
Actually, there's a question here about some of the pieces that you had
Yeah.
shown. I'll read it out loud. It says, these last spaces between the item choices and the colors, is the art made specifically intended for the sensory experience for the sensory minded, or to represent how you experience creativity throughout the senses? If the formal, is there data/info on how the experiences are received differently than, quote, traditional, unquote, creations?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. Specifically intended for the sensory.
Given that earlier you did say that it wasn't initially intended to be related to autism, it just kind of accidentally came out that way, that answers some of that, but I just had the thought like, oh, were you, because sometimes I don't have words to express, so expressing through art is easier, right? So I didn't know if you were expressing your own experiences by using those senses, or if you were trying to make something specifically so that people who identify as having autism or are more sensory minded can experience things differently by feeling safer in the space or by having the collar on or
I think it started, as you said, like kind of the subconscious, making to sort of deal with my own sensory processing needs, or like it was something that I didn't know exactly why I was making it, but then discovered, that I was making it. But then later, the consideration came in for, in terms of like developing the space, or especially with this installation, like the lighting, the scent, the creating like soft textures to go with like these paper textures. Although like everything can be touched, and like I wouldn't say that the paper is like hard really, but it's it does have some rigidity to it. This is like one of the pulp paintings that I made. So it's interesting, yeah, because I incorporated like blankets and pillows and things like that in this space, which I hadn't done in previous installations. So I definitely like did think about that more, or like kind of take feedback from other um, aspects of like disseminating the work, previous installations and things like that.
Great. And I think there's one more question I'll read here. The variety of mediums you're using is so fascinating. Do you go into a lot of the work with an idea of what medium you want to use, or is it trial and error by trying new things?
Oh, was that a question?
Yes.
I think I did answer that because I was
Okay.
talking about paper. Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry. All right.
that's okay.
Great. Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, if anyone else doesn't have any questions, then I think we can wrap it up. Kat, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge, your experience, all of your work. I think this has resonated with a lot of people, and with the community that we've had and with the talk so far, I know that there's going to be more interest in it. So I'm very, very glad that you're able to come on and speak to us. So thank you, and congratulations, Dr. Cope, on your successful defense.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody. And your questions were so interesting. And I'm so grateful for the dialogue. So I look forward to continuing chatting with all of you. And if you want to contact me, yeah. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.